Hey, some 80% of Americans say thumbs up to Donald Trump. Interesting start to his presentation last night.
The Dan York State of Mind program is brought to you in part by Lookout Rhode Island and Takeo Comfort Solutions.
Tonight we're going to talk a little bit about the challenges with getting along. And this anti-Semitic kick-up has just been disgusting. Even Donald Trump had to address it at the top of his speech, and we'll talk about that. Also, some of the travel ban stuff, which I think is actually kind of on the lower burner today. Don't think the Trump people aren't getting a sense of politics. They're riding high on last night's speech, and they may just slow play the new executive order on travel bans. Great to have you in on this Wednesday evening. We're going to forego most of the local stuff that we would talk about on a nightly basis because we've got two fine guests and a really important conversation to have here. Let's roll the CBS reporting on last night's, not State of the Union, but kind of joint address to Congress, and I have some thoughts on that, and we'll get going.
We are a country that stands united in condemning hate and evil in all of its very ugly forms.
President Trump using his first speech to Congress and the nation to lay out his top priorities in office, although he seemed to soften his position on immigration.
I believe that real and positive immigration reform is possible as long as we focus on the following goals: to improve jobs and wages for Americans, to strengthen our nation's security, and to restore respect for our laws.
The president also focusing on health care, hammering away at Obamacare, which he and fellow Republicans say they plan to repeal and then replace. Although so far, the GOP has offered few specifics.
Mandating every American to buy government-approved health insurance was never the right solution for our country.
But Democrats remain unimpressed, saying the speech is out of touch with the way the president has governed so far. The former governor of Kentucky delivering the Democratic Party's rebuttal.
Real leaders strengthen, they unify, they partner, and they offer real solutions instead of ultimatums and blame.
Oh, there we are. I think Kevin was just shocked that they used the old Kentucky governor for a Democratic response. What was that? It used to be that the opposition response was about the stellar upcomers in a party. So the Democrats sitting on their hands last night and then putting out the old Kentucky governor, they're off their playbook a little bit. Now look, I have not been a fan of Donald Trump. You know that throughout this entire campaign and this first month and a half. But you'd have to be a flaming idiot not to suggest that somehow he found his stride last night. I don't know if this is a temporary phenomenon or whether we're going to go right back to the tweeting, fill in the blank that he is. But that was a significant improvement in terms of this goal of presidentiality, which the administration seems to have. Two things real quick. On the Obamacare thing, stop calling it that. Didn't you feel a sense of political, personal in that discussion? Barack Obama allowed the legacy to get in front of the solution. Obamacare was terrific when he was here. Now that he's no longer the president, it's a referendum on him. It's called the Affordable Care Act, and I wish Donald Trump called it that last night. I think it'll be a lot easier to correct the problems in Obamacare if you call it the Affordable Care Act and get the personalities out of the politics. By the way, he's more or less running the entire Paul Ryan playbook on that one. I'll have more chances to talk about that. Lastly, I thought the touch with Karen Owens was just poignant as all get out. Although Donald Trump couldn't help but talk about the record-breaking applause afterwards, which I think just kind of, I don't know, too much Trump in that. But for the most part, presidential, yeah, no doubt about that. So in the meantime, he did smartly, I think, talk about some of the attacks, verbal, thankfully, for the most part, threats, if you will, on some of our Jewish facilities around the country. And we have a couple of headlines here that talk to that. President Trump suggests anti-Semitic threats across the U.S. coming from within the Jewish community. Huh? Really? And then Trump opens speech responding to it. And of course, we've got this travel ban thing, which is dangling as well. And my guest is going to talk to both. Rabbi Sarah Mack returns. She's the president of the Board of Rabbis of Greater Rhode Island. And Aisha Manzoor is the Rhode Island Council for Muslim Advancement. Welcome to both of you. Thanks for coming. Before I even start on and digging deep on this, are your issues common ground here, the two of you?
I'd say yeah.
Yes?
Absolutely. I think even before we came today, we were talking about how we share security issues in some ways. I think, our traditions both emphasize care for the vulnerable, feeding the hungry, clothing the naked, and so we share more than we don't.
So when you see this travel ban stuff, we'll talk about the anti-Semitism pop up here later in the second segment, but when you see this travel ban stuff, do you feel like it has something to do with your perspective?
Absolutely.
Because?
My ancestors were immigrants to this country, and I'm fortunate that actually my grandparents were all born here, but my great-grandparents were not, and fled as refugees, and I think
But
many...
they are primarily Muslim countries that have been targeted, obviously, at least in the first go-round, this failed executive order. It still speaks to you?
My great-grandfather fled from Turkey. It does still speak to me.
Okay.
Absolutely. I don't think it takes into account human suffering and the care of the vulnerable that is really important to us all.
The president began with the discussion of some of this spreading anti-Semitic sentiment out there. It's not necessarily the issue you came here for, I'm guessing, but does that speak to you?
Yes. It
How?
does.
Why?
Well, Jews and Christians are our cousins in faith, so it definitely speaks to us. And if it, just like Sarah said before we actually came here, that it's them today, but it could be us tomorrow. So we all share this responsibility of being there for one another, and our faiths require us to be there for one another.
Well, it's not like mosques haven't been in the line of, I don't want to say fire because I don't like to get people too fired up, but I mean mosques have suffered, even here, some turbulence from the unknown cowards that will attack and do whatever. So we can say what? The faith community feels kind of synergistic in this whole moment in history that we've got going on here right now?
I would say that's the bright spot. Absolutely. That's what gives me hope and faith in the future, honestly. The support of
Especially in
our
a
faith
state
partners.
like Rhode Island, we're very fortunate that all our interfaith allies and ties, we're very close-knit, and we're able to have these discussions with one another and talk to one another and just be on the same common ground.
Well, it's interesting because I wanted to ask some questions in that direction, because many folks would say, well, I got the rabbi and that's that conversation, and we've got the representative from the Muslim advancement cause, and that's that question. The truth of the matter is that you feel a kinship in what? Define it. Kinship in what?
Just all interfaith. Everything that we do together, our religions are so close tied and they are separate. It's amazing. Everything is part of the Abrahamic faith, so it all comes down, all trickles down into one.
Guess what? Most people don't get that, you know.
Yeah, well,
That's the big challenge. I mean, how many Muslim representatives have we had on this show, and they've been plentiful. We spent a lot of time on this, maybe not enough for some folks, but I don't know that there's a real understanding about some of the concepts that you're still talking about here in terms of commonality versus not so common ground.
I'm not. So Rhode Island Council for Muslim Advancement works with all the imams within Rhode Island, the Islamic school, and it works with all Muslim-owned businesses and Muslim-owned organizations. And from what I've seen, it seems like everybody's on board, and everyone is there with their Jewish and Christian allies. So they're
Yeah, when you walk
faith,
in, and I respect that answer, and I'm sure that's true. You walk in that circle of doers. But I'm talking about the general public and an understanding of the Muslim faith. We've had a lot of, perceived Muslim bashing that's gone on here in both the campaign and the early start to the Trump administration. There's a lot of gasping for air that Muslim leadership has had here on this program, looking for a little bit of solace somewhere. Is it getting any better in your mind?
Well, there is a certain, there's an uncertainty in the community, but as leaders and as people that help our congregations and our people, you know, we have to stand our ground and we have to be there for them. So we are the voice of reason for them.
All right,
so.
good. We'll talk a little bit about the travel ban specifically and, of course, some of the turbulence that we've seen in the news even this week, even here at home. When we come back, stay with us. Welcome back. You know, there's been some anti-Semitic sentiment, I guess that's a word you could use, putting it politely, around the country, and then right here at home, same stuff.
Now what happened in Rhode Island. The latest round of bomb threats made against Jewish community centers across the nation include the center in Providence. The center and preschool on the city's east side were evacuated late morning after police say a computer-generated phone call made a threat against the center.
In abundance of caution, they've evacuated the building and we've cleared it to make sure that it's safe for everyone to return.
Bomb-sniffing dog Kyra swept the building and found nothing.
We have to proceed with heightened vigilance. We have to bond together as a community. Anti-Semitism.
We spoke with Jeffrey Savitt last week as other centers nationally were threatened. Now it's his building.
Very diligent preparing for if there were ever a need for us to need to evacuate the building.
Centers in Indiana, Pennsylvania, Florida, Alabama received the same calls Monday. The White House press secretary said this at his briefing.
The president continues to condemn these and any other form of anti-Semitic and hateful acts in the strongest terms.
It's all of us. This is just not a Jewish thing. It is an entire community thing that we all have to stick together because there is no place for this anywhere for anybody.
Ditto. So as soon as this stuff came down, you guys were talking.
We were
right?
in a meeting together, actually.
You were at a
And,
meeting together when the news of this came?
So it was a few minutes before, and we were in a meeting. It just consisted of the clergy folk, and we were sitting together. And I spoke to Sarah. I kind of whispered to her, and I was like, "So, you know, this is what I have in mind." And she just took it on from there. She's like, "Great!" And then so it just happened. It stemmed from there.
That is really the bright spot. Is that, you know, within moments of what is a really just disturbing incident, the Muslim community and also our Christian friends had reached out, and there will be a vigil on Sunday, really with their support and love and condemning the hatred.
That's at 3 o'clock on Sunday?
Yes, 3 o'clock Sunday.
At the Rhode Island Holocaust Memorial. The information, just so in case you're, where is that? Will be on the website at foxprovidence.com immediately after you watch the program. Yeah, I mean, I don't get this. I mean, when this first came down, I said on the radio, and I've said this before, when mosques have been threatened by these anonymous cowards who do so, sometimes bringing attention to this stuff only feeds the beast, right? But when it's systemic across the country and there's dozens of facilities that are getting the same kind of message, you can hardly ignore it. Anytime the police are called, it's public record. When the police are called to an event or to a situation like this, it's reportable, it's news, so you can't bury your head in the sand. But it does, I wonder, you know, vigils versus just turning the other cheek and letting it roll off your back. What's the best strategy?
My thinking is that this kind of hatred, be it Islamophobia or anti-Semitism, needs to be denounced from the top officials, and it needs to come from the people as well.
Were you relieved last night that the president started his speech with this?
I was. I think that was really important, and I think it needs to come from local officials. We can't let it be okay. I think, you know, ignoring it lets it into the. Ignoring it doesn't solve the problem.
You don't think it amplifies it?
No, I don't. I think that it needs to be said. It needs to be out there. So many times, especially with the Muslim community, we've heard that, you know, oh, the Muslims are looking the other way, or why aren't the Muslims speaking up? They are speaking up, but are you listening? You know, so we've made it a point to say it, be out there, regardless of, you know, whether it so quote unquote feeds the beast or not.
Where do you think this comes from? I don't know. I mean, you know, hatred simmers throughout our planet. There's evil in the world. There's bias. There's bigotry. There's all those things. But to actually generate the energy to kind of do this kind of thing is something that 99.9999% of the population doesn't really compute. So
I think it's important to understand that this is terror. I mean, these may be quote unquote only phone calls, but every time it happens, it's the most vulnerable. You have children in daycares being evacuated, you have senior citizens being pulled out of pools, and standing in a parking lot. It's striking fear in the hearts of the most vulnerable at a place where you should feel safe. And the other place where anti-Semitism has popped up is cemeteries, which are holy resting places where those who have died do no longer have a voice. So it is the ultimate cowardly act to take to act upon this with those who are deceased and the youngest and oldest in our communities. And I don't know where it's coming from. I mean, I will say there's certainly an uptick. This is in my career. I have not seen the likes of this
all
before
right, so
now.
then you get to the question, because this is where we go from 0 to 60. We can grab some water for Rabbi. If you feel free. We're chilled here. We're very loose here. I'll ask the inevitable question: is this a Donald Trump thing?
I don't know. That's something I can't answer. I know that post-elections, it's been more heightened, and it's given leeway to people for people to just openly be racist and be prejudiced. But I don't know if this is from that itself. But I know there have been more hate crimes now more than ever with all groups of faith. So it's not just targeted towards one group of people. But
There's been dust that's been kicked up here. Do you find the president responsible?
I don't know that I can speak to that necessarily. I will agree with Aisha. In the last 2 years, with this whole cycle, we have been standing together far too often, be it in front of the Islamic school, the mosque at URI, letters sent to mosques. In addition, there was the swastika at the Kollel on the sign on the east side, and this. So, I'm not a political scientist. I can't speak to that, and I'm not sure I want to speak to that. But you can decide. There's definitely been an upswing. So somehow the gates of hatred have been opened, and I will let others, make the decision as to the cause behind it.
Where do we go from here is anybody's guess, but we'll try to answer that question when we come back. Stay with us.
You see, he said he was going to ask a very simple, easy question. And it's not. It's not a simple question, not a fair question. Okay, sit down. I understand the rest of your question. So here's the story, folks. Number one, I am the least anti-Semitic person that you've ever seen in your entire life. Number two, racism, the least racist person. In fact, we did very well relative to other people running as a Republican. Quiet, quiet, quiet. See, he lied about he was going to get up and ask a very straight, simple question.
Donald Trump speaks in superlatives. But I'm guessing that you guys aren't coming up with an award for the least anti-Semitic person in the country or the least racist person in the country. It is beyond me. Sorry, I know we had a great night last night, but it's beyond me how he can speak in that kind of fashion, as if that's a competition that exists out there. I'm the least anti-Semitic person you'll ever want to find. Now, I've been told by guys like Joe Trillo, the co-chairman of the Trump campaign, you can't listen to what he says. You got to figure out what he means, because if you worry about his words, I do a great Joe Trillo, that's when you get yourself in trouble. I don't know that there is someone you can quantify as the least anti-Semitic or least racist person around, but how do you react to that kind of commentary?
Well, I will tell you, I believe that words matter, and our tradition teaches that words matter, and which is why I believe it's so important to condemn hatred, and why our leaders need to condemn hatred, because whether we like it or not, it starts with words. So I think that's important to remember, and that's what we teach our children.
Do you chuckle? Do you sneer like I do over the superlative effort to become the most least, and do you take them literally? You just kind of like, oh, that's just him.
You know, I don't know that I want to make a political commentary. I will say I want the Jewish community to feel at home in America as we have, and I want my Muslim brothers and sisters to be able to worship without
You don't think he's
worry.
anti-Semitic?
I don't.
I'm sorry. Do you think he's
I
anti-Semitic?
do not believe that he himself is anti-Semitic. No.
But
I think the gates of hatred have been opened.
you said that. And the least racist. We'll throw the Muslim community into that victim category for the sake of conversation. Do you react to that superlative?
Same thing what Rabbi Sarah just said. In the Islamic tradition, in the Islamic teachings, we are taught, and we also teach our children that that your word is your bond. So, you know, words do matter to us as well. And so whatever we speak, it does matter. Do I think he's racist? I think that he's opened up the gates for racism.
All right, well, the Rabbi said he doesn't think he's specifically or personally anti-Semitic. Do you think he's Islamophobic?
I think some of the things that he has said, once again, words matter, do come down as Islamophobic, and that is a problem.
The executive order on the travel ban, I'm sure, gave you a lot of agita.
It is a travel ban, but he didn't, I'm not exactly sure. I don't think he himself said that it was a Muslim travel ban. I know that it has been thrown out there because of the Muslim countries, the majority of Muslim countries that are in there. But and I know Muslims feel it. We have been feeling it.
Well, there's going to be a revised order. So the first one is, you know, more or less killed in court. There's a revised one coming. Reportedly, he's taking it on a slow play based on the good roll that he had last night. Now, that's an interesting thing, because if that's true, then the White House perceives that the ban itself is a political problem. That's a plus for you. Yes?
I don't think that anybody should be banned. It's immigration. America was built on this. America was built on immigrants coming in. It shouldn't be just a certain group of people or anybody at all.
It's clear to me that the role that you two play, and I say this respectfully, is in religion and relationship and causes, and the politics of this are not something you're very comfortable with. But I would just suggest that you can't exclude the politics from this. We don't have much of a show left. We only have 10 seconds, but they're married.
Absolutely. Yeah, I mean, of course they're married, but I also, you know, we want everyone to feel safe in our congregation. Mm-hmm. So, you know, understand where I'm coming from. It's important for me to be here with Aisha, to share our human relationship, and that to dispel any myths about Islam and to share what we have in common.
And your idea for a vigil, again, the information is on the website. It is Sunday at 3 p.m. Thanks for visiting. Good luck, as always. Keep the faith.
Thank you.
Final word when we come back. Stay with us. You know, both of my guests just reminded me during the break, they've already exited stage left, but both of them have constituencies, both Jewish and Muslim, who voted for Donald Trump. And they wanted to make sure that you knew that, because this is a complicated political conversation, no doubt. Thanks for watching. See you on the radio tomorrow at 3 on WPRO. Good night.